Alright, so let's dive into Dopamine Nation by Anna Lembke. This book gets you thinking about how pleasure and pain work in your brain and what happens when we start chasing pleasure too much. She explores how our brains have evolved to be really good at seeking rewards and how that can become a trap, especially with how easy it is to receive instant gratification in modern society. Lemke's work has a lot to do with the rise in modern addictions too. Many things have started competing for our limited attention in the form of highly addictive stimulations, mainly from the internet and easy to access entertainment. She starts by explaining how dopamine is the driving force behind motivation, desire, and pleasure. Think of dopamine like a go signal in your brain. When something feels good or we achieve something, our dopamine levels surge. But this surge doesn't last. Your brain very quickly returns to baseline and might even start to want more and more and more. Lemke says that over time, constant overstimulation results in tolerance, where you need to get used to a higher dose, making a reward system that doesn't get the job done. This is the core of so many addiction issues. The reward is less and less. It doesn't feel so great, yet the desire for stimulation remains. Our minds start expecting a higher stimulation, and tolerance will make any natural joy seem muted. The book highlights the fact that modern life throws these easy rewards at us from every angle, from social media notifications, fast food, TV shows, and other entertainment that are engineered to hook us with instant hits of dopamine. The internet makes it very easy to receive instant gratification with constant stimulation everywhere we go. These things trigger our reward systems, but they also change our brains in ways we still don't understand, but our brains are not meant to manage this much stimulation in this much quantity and regularity. All that access means that over time, your pleasure baseline moves upwards, so that normal experience starts to feel flat or underwhelming. All because your feel-good mechanisms are calibrated to respond only to high stimulation. One of the main points is about this delicate balance, what Lemke refers to as the pleasure-pain balance. For any stimulation you enjoy, your body is always striving to reestablish its equilibrium by producing an equal amount of pain after each dose of stimulation. Basically, pleasure creates pain after the peak wears off. When the good feelings disappear, a crash follows. Your mind becomes sensitive to any discomfort, both emotionally and physically, especially during withdrawals, the worst form of post-stimulation. The brain experiences this as a form of negative reinforcement because stimulation stops being the thing and its absence makes all experiences bad. Therefore, people need to keep reaching out for the next stimulation so that they no longer need to feel withdrawals. If you constantly give your body artificial dopamine shots, you will slowly start moving further and further away from finding joy naturally. Lemke also goes into addiction in detail by showcasing that it's not only limited to drugs or alcohol. These mechanisms also work with phones, porn, and other easily addictive platforms of modern day that we commonly perceive as normal behavior or even beneficial behavior for our productivity or social skills. The thing is that our minds are always trying to compensate for any extra high by expecting an equally low sensation later on. This push-pull of the reward system becomes out of control to some, or it becomes very difficult to avoid for those who didn't see this pattern early on and took things for granted. Lemke makes it very clear that knowing about these modern addictions can save many individuals from going down a path with less overall well-being. So, what's the answer? It's not about completely getting rid of dopamine, since dopamine in normal doses makes human progress, personal achievements, and good emotions possible, and it's still required for everyday life. Lemke's suggestions are more about balance, becoming aware of when pleasure seeking is driving your decisions instead of purpose. To manage dopamine well is not to stop it, but to train it. She mentions things like embracing boredom or suffering through withdrawal periods. It seems very simple, but as our brain recalibrates over time, everyday activities start to bring a more complete feeling and our previous high stimulations becomes a low source of joy. Another thing is about seeking a diversity of pleasures that can balance your reward system in the long term by making a wide variety of daily life pleasures the default instead of reaching for the super stimulations every time you feel the urge. Some ways she highlights in which a healthy life is found are through exercise, reading, music, or any other passion that will lead you to a more meaningful or fulfilling feeling rather than a mere superficial satisfaction. This process will also help recalibrate the perception that high stimulation equals high satisfaction, and that's key to building a more self-regulated brain. The more that person resists chasing highs and the more they develop meaningful lives through patience, discipline, meaningful actions, or social support from other people, the more fulfilling these more bland and seemingly lower dopamine actions become. Lemke argues that doing some discomfort consciously or spending time bored might actually end up increasing your ability to enjoy everyday situations because our brains are really great at self-regulation if given time, as many dopamine levels return to baseline after an addiction withdrawal, regardless of the initial substance of addiction. The book challenges you to think about how your brain reacts to the things that give you pleasure. By doing that, it empowers you to understand what is a reward for you and how it will inevitably lead you down to another path once that pleasurable experience is done. You must learn to use pleasure as a tool that allows progress and to control the use of excessive pleasure for high levels of satisfaction so that you can learn that a satisfying and meaningful life will outweigh quick instant pleasures on any given day. It shows you that pleasure is important and not something to avoid completely, but you have to understand what truly makes you happy instead of what gives you immediate shallow pleasure to help you live a well-rounded and complete life. Understanding dopamine better and a deeper level also brings a higher sense of responsibility to take our dopamine intake consciously, just as other things we are careful about in our everyday lives. The whole idea, after all, is about living fully in the real world instead of chasing dopamine from one source to another, because it becomes like chasing a never-ending dragon that will ultimately become our enemy.